all for your patience. Assalamu alaikum. Please proceed. Thank you guys so much. Before I start, I'd like to give a disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I'm a person who had a very severe case of autoimmune disease, and like thousands of people before me, I was able to overcome it through nutrition and lifestyle. And so let's get started. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So, first of all, I have to thank each and every one of you for being here. I know a lot of the faces here. It truly means a lot to me. We have a few people here visiting a mosque for the first time. I really appreciate you being here as well. We all welcome you here. I put this lecture together on autoimmune disease because in my lifetime, I've never come across such important, life-changing information that was so hard to access in the health and medical world. For an 8-year period, I had a very severe case of Crohn's disease. During that time, I was rushing to the bathroom more than 15 times a day. I had 10 major surgeries at that time. I had infections that were so bad, I required to have drains in my body for over a year of my life in total. The reason I tell you this is because even with a severe case of autoimmune disease, your health habits and your health choices play a tremendous role in finding remission. So alhamdulillah, during that time, I got to go to some of the best hospitals around. Oddly enough, whenever I bring up my diet, I would get the same response, which was that my diet would play a small role, if any, in healing my autoimmune disease. Basically, I would just have to wait for the right medication or surgery to come along to resolve my issues. Now, for myself and for many others, those medications and things, they just didn't quite work. And so, I haven't really told this to anybody before, but a couple years back, with my health declining, I reflected and I asked myself, what would I do on the day of judgment if this disease cuts my life short? And I did very little, but simply try to take medication to fix it. And so, from that point, I decided I was going to take the best information I could gather, and I was going to be as healthy as I could possibly be every single day, regardless of what the results would be. And alhamdulillah, after several months, I was able to reverse around 30 to 40 ulcers in my small intestines strictly through nutrition and lifestyle. And so let's get started on how you and I can get our quality of life back from autoimmune disease. So what is an autoimmune disease? An autoimmune disease is when the immune system attacks itself. Now there's different theories and things of why that happens. We won't get into that. But basically your immune system sees a part of your body as a foreign outside threat and it begins attacking it. So for example, if your immune system were to attack your colon, you'd be diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Or if your immune system were to attack your joints, you'd be diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So there's just over 100 different autoimmune diseases that work in the same type of manner. Autoimmune diseases are genetic. What's interesting is that you can carry this gene and never have it become active or triggered in your lifetime. What's even more interesting is if you have this gene and it's active, it's possible to deactivate this gene. And so that's what this lecture is about. What can you and I do to lessen the response or completely inactivate this autoimmune disease gene? So when you first go to a doctor and you're diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, your first likely question is, why is this happening? Or what is the root cause of it? The answer is always that they don't know. What they do know is that with oral medication or biological medications, if they suppress the immune system in a certain way, it could lose its ability to attack itself, relieving you of your symptoms. Now this is a wonderful thing when you're feeling horrible from autoimmune disease. Any kind of relief is wonderful. I'm going to tell you why it's not the perfect answer if you're only relying on medication. Number one, these medications, they have to be taken permanently. They're expensive. They have short-term and long-term side effects that can be very severe. They can stop working after a few years, or for many like myself, they could just not work at all. And so, And so really, if only somebody knew what the root cause of autoimmune disease is, it could be addressed, and you can feel like yourself again. What I can tell you is that there are thousands of people who have figured out the root cause of their autoimmune disease. Alhamdulillah, I'm one of them. Now the answer is different for every individual, but for those that have done it, the following things to help them calm or completely relieve their autoimmune disease symptoms. So the most common one is our diet, which we're going to speak in depth about today. Another one is suffering from a leaky gut. I'm going to explain to you what that is a little later. Pesticides in food, toxins in drinking water, toxins we use and encounter in everyday life, poor air quality, unknown mold exposure, stress, inadequate sleep, high mercury or metals in your diet, unknown infections, and a weak immune system. It can be one or most likely a combination of many. Now, all these toxins and harmful things I mentioned, your body's encounters them hundreds of times daily. There's no way to eliminate all of them. That's not what the goal is. The goal is to greatly lessen the ones you can control, while at the same time giving your body the tools to being better at fighting them. Now, the unique thing about your diet is you can remove a great amount of harm as well as greatly strengthen your body and your immune system. So let's first start with removing the harm that we voluntarily or maybe involuntarily do to ourselves every meal of the day. We do this by identifying what in our diet is inflammatory. So think of inflammation as like an irritant. So what's the biggest irritant to our body that we consume? So the number one biggest inflammatory is added sugar. This is any sugar that doesn't come naturally from a whole food. Any sugar you find that's in box foods or snack foods or sodas or even 100% juices. Anything labeled added sugar on the back of a food label or even very high amounts of sugar derived from foods. This also includes artificial sweeteners, and as you all know, they put sugars in breads and everything you could think of these days. Number two is seed oils. As more research is done, these can very well be considered the number one inflammatory in our diet. Seed oils are heavily processed, cheap cooking oils that are chemically extracted and bleached. These oils are in every meal that you buy out. They're in every box food and frozen food and snack food. Basically anything you could think of that contains any amount of oil. It's likely what you're using at home right now too. So this includes canola oil, there you go, it has canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, vegetable oil, peanut oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. There's many, many more of them. Not only are they cheap and harmful, but they're highly addictive. You can even find these oils found in organic hummus. Dried fruits sometimes have these oils, and your favorite seasonings in your cabinets might contain them. There's a video that's on YouTube actually of, it's actually from back in the 90s. It's from a canola oil factory, and they were showing us, how great their oil is and the whole production. And so it's like a 10-stage process of this oiling, of heating it and chemically extracting it. When they get to the last step, you see this oil and it's gray and it's blotchy. Honestly, it reminds me of like swamp water. It looks very disgusting. And then they bleach it, and as soon as they bleach it, it comes out as this perfect, beautiful golden oil. And so we have to realize all those chemicals in the bleaching, we consume that many times a day, 7 days a week, and it takes a toll on us, and so we have to be aware of these things. Next thing, processed foods and processed meats. These are also very inflammatory. Basically all packaged and boxed food products with ingredients that you can't find in nature. Anything with preservatives and chemicals to make you addicted to a product. Any word that you can't pronounce in an ingredient list or you don't know what it means is likely an ultra-processed food additive. Most dairy are heavily processed. You should avoid all dairy, and we're going to mention a few things in a minute as well. We have refined carbohydrates. That is wheat bread, wheat flour, wheat products, pasta, noodles, white rice, cereal, quick oats. These are all processed foods or ultra-processed foods that not only spike your blood pressure and they crash your energy levels, but they're also highly inflammatory to your body. They also damage the lining of your gut, sometimes without you even feeling the discomfort after having them. So an easy way to eliminate all of these is a diet of only whole foods and whole food ingredients, as well as eliminating wheat. This eliminates all four categories that we just mentioned. And the reason we're eliminating wheat is because over the years, it's been genetically modified in order to be able to grow it much cheaper. And in doing so, it's lost a lot of its nutrients. It's higher in gluten, which is why we have so many sensitivities these days to gluten. And then really, once the wheat is broken down into flour, it already loses even more nutrients in that processing. And so it really has very little benefit and has a lot more harm. And there are better alternatives out there, and we'll discuss those soon, inshallah. Are there any questions so far on just the things that I've mentioned? I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Sure.
Oh, I just wonder, is olive oil good?
That is a great question. We're going to answer that question for you coming up. Yes.
So you mentioned dairy is also to avoid it in all form, organic, non-organic?
No, I'm going to mention a couple dairies that we keep on our diet. Things like milk and cheese are generally heavily processed in order to create them. There's a lot of heating and killing of a lot of good bacteria and things like that. So we'll discuss some really good options that you can keep as well. Okay. All right. So I did a really fun experiment that I want to share with you guys. Just a few years ago, this is what I would normally eat in a day. I looked up all the food labels on all the ingredients. So let's see how many non-food chemicals and preservatives I was unknowingly eating. So in my typical day, this is just my typical eating day, I'd have eggs, a bagel and cream cheese, maybe some apple juice for breakfast. For lunch, I'd have a turkey sandwich and pretzels and a granola bar. For dinner, I'd have a home-cooked meal of like a beef kebab with rice, salad. Maybe I'd have a protein bar after dinner. And then I'd have a banana sometime throughout the day. So not a terrible diet. As you see, there's no pizza or fast food or ice cream or donuts. So this was me being a healthy guy who exercises. This is what I would eat. Okay, so I'd have a Costco bagel in the morning. You know, at Costco, they have the fresh section with the muffins and the bagels. That Costco bagel had 24 non-food ingredients in it when I read the list. It also contained seed oils. My cream cheese had 6 non-food ingredients in it. Apple juice had 6 non-food ingredients. My 100% whole wheat bread, I wasn't eating white bread. I was trying to be healthier. I eat 100%. That doesn't taste as good. Has 11 non-food ingredients in it. Also has seed oils. Turkey had 6 non-food ingredients. Mayonnaise had 4. The very first ingredient is a seed oil. Cheese had 11. Pickles has 5. Pretzels has 10 with the seed oil. Granola 7 with the seed oil. White grapes with the seed oil. Beef kebab 1 with the seed oil. Salad dressing 12. The very first ingredient in the salad is seed oil. Protein bar 9. Seed oil. So in total, I consume 113 non-food ingredients and 9 seed oils. And remember, this is my good day of eating. So when I first did this experiment, I was really pleased because it really shows you how damaging our typical diets can be. But then I got a little depressed, to be honest with you, because all those hours I spent with my doctors and with my family and doing my own research, and it turned out that I was just poisoning myself, you know. I was just poisoning myself. And so the worst part was no one in this field had the education or understanding on what today's food actually is so that I could be warned about what I was doing. So the 113 chemicals I mentioned, that number today in my everyday diet is between 0 and 1 non-food chemicals and 0 seed oils. So it can be done. And I'm being 100% honest. When I tell you I enjoy the meals I eat today far more than the quick, easy stuff that I was eating before. Now, does anybody remember what the number 1 inflammatory in our diet is?
Sugar.
Sugar, correct. So this old typical diet, I was eating 83 grams of sugar, which is me consuming 20 teaspoons of sugar. If you don't know what 20 teaspoons looks like, I was having that much sugar every single day. And it's actually much more sugar than this. All the carbohydrates from the bagel and the slices of bread and the white rice and the granola and the pretzels, when those are consumed, your body turns them into glucose. And what is glucose? It's basically simple sugar. And so I had even more sugar-like inflammation in my body. The number 2 biggest inflammatory was seed oils. I was having 9 of them, basically multiple seed oils, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Number 3, processed foods. That's where the 113 chemicals came in, as well as my processed turkey meat. The 4th thing was the breads and the rice and the oats. So really, my entire diet was incredibly inflammatory. And again, this is my good day of eating. So the next question is, what do I eat? The concept is simple. You eat a nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory diet. So what does that mean? It means every meal you eat is with a purpose to give your body every tool to function at its best, especially foods that directly fight inflammation, that contain antioxidants and omega-3s. You do this by eating lots of organic, non-starchy vegetables, high-quality meats, healthy, nutritious fats, and a limited amount of organic fruits and nutritious starchy grains. And so I'm going to explain what each one of those is to you guys. So non-starchy vegetables, these are basically any vegetable besides potato, beans, and corn. Non-starchy vegetables have nutrients that aid your body in digestion, gut health, better energy, better sleep, better recovery. Mental alertness comes from these types of foods. We're talking about broccoli and cauliflower and asparagus and leafy greens and tomatoes, which are technically a fruit, cucumbers, bell peppers, Brussels sprouts, and there's many more of them, obviously. Eating a wide variety of vegetables will give your body almost all the tools to get back in line with functioning properly. Now, the normal suggestion you hear is to have 5 servings of vegetables a day. Maybe you guys have heard that before. And by the way, a serving size of vegetable is about 1 cup. So 1 cup of raw vegetables, or if it's cooked, then it's about half a cup of cooked vegetables. And so honestly, that's too little. You should be eating at least 8 to 10 servings of vegetables a day. One of the reasons is that in today's age, our soil quality is very poor. That means our vegetables and our fruits that grow, they have far less nutrients than they did just decades ago. And so it's essential to have more vegetables in your diet to give your body the vitamins and nutrients that it needs to heal. High quality meats. The average meat that we normally see in our supermarkets is simply not very good in quality, including our butcher shops too, unfortunately. The animals are fed genetically modified corn and wheat along with cheap fillers to fatten them up as quickly as possible. They're given antibiotics through loopholes, even when the meat says antibiotic-free. When we say high-quality meats, we're talking about 100% grass-fed beef, lamb, and goat, pasture-raised chickens, and wild-caught seafood. These meats have 3 times more omega-3 fats than the low-quality stuff. They're higher in B12, higher in iron. They're nutritionally better in every way. And maybe most importantly, they don't have the bad omega-6 fats that are inflammatory and come from animals that eat cheap corn and feed of that kind. So these meats, they're also anti-inflammatory, these good ones that we're talking about, exactly what you need. Now, when you hear studies of red meat and other meats being bad for you and they increase your risk of heart disease and cancer, those studies are only true because they're based on the cheaper quality meats that we mentioned, as well as a typical American diet, kind of like what you saw me eating before. Not a single study of a high vegetable diet with high quality meats has ever shown anything but great results. It's essential to choose good meat options. Here are some local halal options that I really enjoy using. So Safeway, they have 2 brands. They have the Open Nature brand and they have Organics brand. Those come in 100% halal ground beef and steaks as well as lamb. Target, they have a brand called Thomas Farms, also 100% grass-fed beef. Grocery outlet in Costco Business Center, they carry the Diamond Valley brand. That is grass-fed as well. And if you really desire meat that is raised humanely, with animals being able to roam freely to eat from fresh, clean pastures, Brother Fahim, he visited our mosque in Belmont actually about less than a year ago. He raises and helps provide these pasture-raised chickens and 100% grass-fed beef. So it's a really wonderful resource. Me and a couple people in here, we've ordered for a couple years from him. The taste is absolutely incredible, and the quality is amazing. He rotates these animals through different green pastures. He really takes care of them. They're even nutritionally superior than these 100% grass ones that I mentioned at our local markets. I highly recommend investing in a deep freezer if you don't have one. That way, when you find these good quality meats, they obviously cost more. Like everything else, they go on sale. Once they do, you can stock up, freeze them, have really good quality meat for you and your family. And then there's this slide that I really enjoyed. So as you can see in the top left of the eggs over there, that's a corn-fed chicken on the top left, and then in the bottom you have a pasture-raised chicken. Pasture-raised meaning it's eating grass, it's eating things it finds in the dirt like it's supposed to. But you can see the darker yolk, it lets you know that it has more omega-3s, it has more nutrients. You can tell just by the look at it. This one in the middle here, that pink ground beef on the left, that's just your conventional corn-fed beef. The one on the right, that deeper color, it's more of a burgundy-like color, that's 100% grass-fed. You know the famous saying, you are what you eat? You could literally see it in these photos right here. You can see what a difference it makes. Imagine if you took a human body and you were to dissect it and look at their muscles. A healthier person would have different colored meat than an unhealthier person. So really, it's really fascinating. Wild-caught seafood, that's the farmed salmon at the top, the very light-colored. That dark, rich one is the wild-caught. And you have to be aware, sometimes they take the cheap one and they put coloring in it and make it look just like it's wild-caught. You have to make sure you read your labels and make sure you're getting a good quality product. Healthy fats, we tend to not realize how many great nutrients come from real foods with good fats. Pasture-raised eggs, avocados, coconuts, such as organic coconut milk, raw or dry roasted nuts and seeds, high-quality fatty fish and meats. They all have anti-inflammatory nutrients in them, and they also keep you satisfied and full throughout the day. The fats you should be cooking with and consuming are avocado oil, coconut oil, ghee, grass-fed butter. For non-cooking, a high-quality extra virgin olive oil is not only a sunnah food, but it's a superfood. These oils are all cold-pressed. That means that you don't have to use heat to chemically extract them. And I'm very fortunate to be doing this lecture at this time. Brother Rami, who's here somewhere, right there, he has, his family has been providing our mosque with Palestinian olive oil, 100% cold pressed, 100% from Palestine, farmed through his own family. We have some nice large jugs out there in the hallway. I bought at least 3 or 4 of them, so I'm a true customer. It's absolutely delicious. It's really high quality. You can see it right when you pour it. It's beautiful olive oil. Thank you. We appreciate that. And the last thing is nutritious starches and low glycemic foods. So I've told you not to eat wheat bread and white rice, which is basically 80% of every culture's diet. Does that sound about right? Okay, so here are some good alternatives. Wild rice, black rice, purple rice, red rice. Most of us don't even know these exist, right? These are, sorry about that. Yeah, so these are all incredible because they're the only natural grains that contain very high amounts of antioxidants, and they have far more nutrients than white rice or brown rice. What's pretty incredible is that they actually have 4 times more antioxidants than even blueberries. So imagine a big bulk of your meal is a superfood that you can have as opposed to just, as opposed to just white rice, which is just a nice filler, right? Sweet potatoes are a wonderful option. Butternut squash is a great option as well. Beans of any kind, quinoa, cauliflower rice. It's not actually a starch, but it surprisingly makes a nice white rice replacement if you've ever had it. Sorry about that. And also I have some recipes for homemade almond flour bread slices if you want to make it home. Homemade biscuits, passable flour tortillas, as well as things that you can just buy at the store, just like almond flour tortillas or stone ground corn tortillas. You can find all these on my nutrition group. I'm going to explain what that is a little bit later. So your breakfast, lunch, and dinner should be a plate that consists of about 50% of non-starchy vegetables, 30% of a high quality meat or a good protein, and then 20% of these healthy starches like the black rice, and the sweet potatoes and things like that, as well as snacks of veggies, nuts, and a limited amount of low glycemic fruits. So this is how you truly maximize your ability to heal with nutrition. A few low glycemic fruits that you can keep and have a couple servings of a day in your diet are blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, kiwis, green apples. There's many more of them, obviously. And the most popular sunnah food and food that we find in the Quran are dates. Dates are the only fruit that's actually high in sugar, yet still low glycemic, which is really, you won't find any other food in the world like that. So not only do they give you that quick instant energy, but they give you sustainable energy as well, subhanAllah. So that transitions us into our little Islamic portion of this lecture. And so when we look at the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, a few interesting things stand out about health. The number one thing that really stood out to me, and it had a deep impact in my journey of overcoming autoimmune disease, is that our body is an amana. So amana is something that you are entrusted with. Just like God has entrusted you with a spouse or with children, you have a religious obligation to take care of them, to look after them, to protect them. It's the same thing with our body. We have a religious perspective of having to take care of that body. And so, before when I want to eat healthier, it would be because I'm going on vacation and I want to look good for my vacation photos, or for this reason or that reason. When you have this mindset that you're doing it because it's part of your deen, it's part of your religion, it really makes it easier to stick to a diet and understand that this is serious. Your life is on the line. Our ability to be able to pray later in life, our ability to see more Ramadan in future years, it's all hinged on what we can do. Obviously, things are in God's hands, but we have to do our own part in preserving our bodies. And so that was something that really flipped the switch for me, and I was able to maintain a good lifestyle of eating. In the Quran, we have in Surah Baqarah, ayah 168, Allah commands mankind to eat that which is lawful and good. And the words that are used are halalan and tayyiban. Just because something is lawful doesn't necessarily make it good. Processed foods are lawful. Are we allowed to have them? Sure. But foods that come from the earth are lawful and good. And so that's what we should be building our diets around and filling our body with. The Quran and Sunnah, they also mention several times not eating and drinking in excess. Many of us were familiar with the famous prophetic teaching, especially we hear this around Ramadan, to fill your stomach with 1/3 food, 1/3 for drink, and 1/3 for air. Now, whenever I hear this during Ramadan, it would always seem impossible to me. Especially when you're hungry, you're like, there's no way I could do that, right? I need to fill myself up here, when it's time to eat. Really, that's only something that's kind of become new because of what our food is these days. But it can actually be done very comfortably. The easiest way to do this is by giving your body the nutrients it needs so that it's not craving all those things that it's actually missing. Something extremely interesting about food that comes from the earth compared to processed foods is that your body technically can't recognize these processed foods. And so it's very hard for it to judge when it's had too much of it, which is why we all overeat them. But your body can recognize real food. That's why you and I, if we wanted to eat a gallon of ice cream, we could do it. But if I told you to eat 5 avocados, it would be very difficult to do, right? Because your body knows what that is, and it can tell you when you've had enough. We don't need to count calories and do these things. Your body knows how to count calories. It just has to have real food in order to identify what they are. And so I think that was another important point. And simply making that change, limiting sugars that give us unnatural cravings, even if it's fruit. If you eat a ton of fruit, you get those sugar cravings, and then it leads to eating other bad sugars. When we limit those kinds of things, it becomes much easier to actually fill your stomach with 1/3 food, 1/3 liquid, and 1/3 air. And so those are just a few really important things from a religious standpoint that we should remember in our journey to change our eating habits, inshallah. Another thing I want to mention is for those with digestive issues and people who have lots of food sensitivities, I highly recommend what's called the Autoimmune Protocol diet. It's basically a whole food elimination diet that eliminates every food with an inflammatory property, and then one food at a time will reintroduce good quality body healing foods until you've kind of put together a nice healthy diet. And so this diet is only for those that have many food sensitivities from their autoimmune disease, and there's millions of us out there. I did this myself because I had a lot of food sensitivities. It's extremely beneficial, and I have the full details on my Crohn's and colitis nutrition page, which I'm going to share with you guys afterward. I also want to mention it's very beneficial to add a few anti-inflammatory supplements. Now, most supplements you see on the shelves, they don't work because, like our food, they're made in the cheapest possible way, and they don't even have to provide evidence of being absorbable. Good quality supplements are those that are already converted into the nutrient that your body can absorb. Here's a list of some anti-inflammatory supplements with one of the most absorbable forms that are safe. Every adult should take this to help lower inflammation and increase essential vitamins. All of these are essential to your brain health as well. And of course, I told you in the beginning, I'm not a doctor. You should consult with a doctor if you're a little bit worried about these. These are all things that you can find over the counter, so they're not nothing extreme. The first one is vitamin D, which is taken in the vitamin D3 plus K2 is a good way to absorb it. Vitamin B12 complex is also another wonderful thing. Turmeric, there's many papers written on the anti-inflammatory powers of turmeric. Magnesium is wonderful. It actually helps you fall asleep. It's a muscle relaxer. And fish oil, which has those good omega-3s that your body cannot naturally produce. So you have to supplement them with your food as well as supplements like these. So now you might ask, is how do I realistically achieve eating good quality food? I have a family, I have kids, I have a full-time job. How can I have the time to eat good quality meals every day? You simply have to prioritize your health. There's no other way around it. So this is what I personally do. Maybe it'll benefit you. Every evening, I make time to prepare a dinner that takes about 30 to 60 minutes long. It doesn't matter if I'm hungry or if I came home late from work. I have to make my own dinner, or my wife, or it's a family thing. You can do that as well. I usually cook 2 different vegetables, a high quality meat, and then I'll have black rice or sweet potato or another healthy starch. For breakfast in the morning, I take about 15 minutes to prepare a veggie omelet with avocado drizzled with my Palestinian olive oil and a stone ground corn tortilla. And then for lunch, I just eat my leftovers from the dinner before. And so that way, I'm cooking basically 2 times a day if you're including a quick 15-minute breakfast. So I think it's very doable, especially as a family team effort. If you prioritize your health, not only will you learn how to cook or become a better cook, you'll have nothing but delicious body-healing food for you and for your family every day. And so this is what I eat 7 days a week for breakfast. As you can see, all those vegetables there, that's 5 to 6 servings of vegetables on its own. So that old recommendation, you're already getting that just before you leave the house, You should really have a nutrient-dense diet. Avocados, they have the good fats, as well as your olive oil. I'm full for 3 to 4 hours after eating breakfast. It actually feels sustainable. I don't feel like taking a nap or laying down after I've had my breakfast. Pasture-raised eggs, also getting my good proteins. When you have the right balance of things, you don't feel lethargic, as I mentioned, and that's actually a sign that your body gives you. When you feel sleepy after a meal, imagine your body is in so much discomfort, it literally wants to shut down just so it could digest the food that you shoved in there, right? So we really have to listen to the signs of our body. A lot of times we just deal with it, and then we get used to, oh, I'm always bloated, I always feel like this. No, those are the warning signs. We have to pay attention to them. We have to respect them. They're signs that we're not going to be doing well if we keep it up. And so this very well right now can be the most important part of this lecture. Our cooking can prevent autoimmune disease and health issues in our own children. Right now in the United States, 60% of the food that adults consume is ultra-processed. What's even scarier is that 70% of the food that our children consume is ultra-processed. Imagine, they're on a projection to be even less healthy than our country is right now. Do you guys want to know how unhealthy our country is right now, unfortunately? So back in the 1960s, about 6% of the United States population had a chronic disease. A chronic disease is like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart disease, any of these diseases that you could think of. These are all considered chronic diseases. That was in the 60s, it was at 6%. According to the CDC, in 2024, 60% of the United States has a chronic disease. 40% have 2 or more chronic diseases than the entire population. Really, so just in the last 60 to 65 years, we've literally gotten 10 times sicker. Imagine, the majority of our children in this room are on a path to a very preventable chronic disease. So you and I have to decide, are we going to keep giving them ultra-processed foods so that they keep quiet and we can move on with our busy days? Or are we going to change what we eat so that we start eating real food as a family? I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old running around here somewhere. It's probably the pickiest ages. Every day it's a battle, I understand, especially if you have young children. Your children are still young. It's very difficult to get them to eat good food. When we stopped having certain options in our house, our kids slowly started trying new food. They would only eat white rice before, and now they're eating black rice at dinner. They're asking for black rice at dinner. I know most adults that wouldn't ask for black rice at dinner, right? So really, you have to make that atmosphere in your home. They have a different vegetable with dinner every day. If they don't like that vegetable, they're going to try it again until it's not so foreign to them. Even just a tiny exposure, even if it's just one bite, it's exposure, it gets their palate prepared, they start to like it all of a sudden. So they don't need to eat as strictly as you and I, but when there is a better choice out there, you and I need to give it to them. When they go to school and they want to take a sandwich, try to get something like organic sourdough that's made with 2 or 3 ingredients. It's better. Do I like to eat wheat? I don't recommend it. But for our kids, at least we're trying to find better options that are sustainable, because you can't send your kid home with salmon and wild rice, at school. Same thing with cheese. Try to find an organic cheese, also just made with minimal ingredients, just 2 or 3 ingredients. But besides that, your children should be eating what you eat at home. When they're home for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they should be eating the same as you. It's truly a family effort. And so, really, we don't need to wait until someone loses their health before we make a change. Can I give you guys some good news now, after all those nice depressing statistics? Yes. Never have we had more access to different produce than we have right now. Imagine, there's vegetables and fruits out there in other countries you would have never tasted in your lifetime. Yet we have airplanes and ships that ship them over here, and they're 3 blocks away from our house now, So, and I don't know if you guys have ever had anybody who's came to this country for the first time, and they go to our grocery store, and they can't believe how many options we have in the produce section, from things we get from Mexico and from, all these neighboring South American countries. Take advantage of it. We can have so many more nutrients. Just in the last about 5 years, now we have 100% grass-fed beef that you can purchase, right? We didn't even know what this was a couple of years ago. So really, we have to take advantage of these wonderful foods we have. We make the right choices, and things will really get better, inshallah. And so yeah, we can be the healthiest generation with all the variety that we have access to. We just have to make these better choices. Really, all you have to do from now on, when you go shopping, I'm going to expect every one of you to keep yourselves accountable. Every item in your shopping cart has to be a food that serves a purpose. Now, if I were to go to Costco and I buy this giant box of processed snacks, I put 20 bad decisions in my house. And honestly, I'm probably going to eat 19 of those decisions, right? Do not buy these. It would actually be more productive if I just went out and had a meal out. At least that's one bad choice that I made, as opposed to having it for my kids, having it for my family. It's always there, it's always tempting you. So please, only make good choices when you're shopping from now on. The bad foods you might have at home, those will slowly get eaten up, and then you'll only have good foods in your home. You don't need to throw out anything in your cabinet. Remember, all humans, since the beginning of time, they consume food that they prepare themselves until just very recently. Meals that come from a cardboard box or frozen foods, they are not real food. They are profit marketing products. That's simply what they are. They're likely what has gotten us into this mess. The National Institutes of Health, they estimate between 5 and 8% of the entire United States population has one autoimmune disease, and that includes children. This is why I was compelled to give this lecture. I knew that I wasn't alone with this information, and there's a desperate need for it. The United States, we're the #1 country in processed food consumption. We're also the #1 country in autoimmune disease. This isn't just the United States problem. This is an entire global problem. This technique of producing foods as cheap as possible, they've copied it from the United States. It's going on all over the world now. The United Kingdom, they're #2 in processed foods. They just happen to be #2 in autoimmune disease too. So you can see how these things are linked. And it's not just processed foods. Obviously, there's been many different changes in our lives. And so really, we have to go back to eating real food, having real movement and exercise, and being productive with our time for our own mental health. And so here are just a few more examples of meal plates, what your meal plate should look like. You can be creative and continue to make your own culture's dishes, but you'll need to obviously adjust a few ingredients, as well as adding more vegetables and reducing the starches. So we're almost at the home stretch. I appreciate your guys' patience. So this is something that was very quick. I made some sauteed ground beef that was seasoned, some black rice in the oven. I cooked 3 vegetables. This was a 30-minute meal that I made. The next photo is green beans and chicken, squash, cauliflower. Kids meals. So we know that our children are very picky. You have to be creative with whole foods in order to satisfy them. Now, one of my favorite things that our kids eat probably every other day, peanut butter banana pancakes. Basically, we mash banana, add some eggs to it, some peanut butter, a little bit of cinnamon, maybe some apples. You mix it up, you cook it in a pan. Doesn't require syrup. It's already sweetened from the vegetables, from the fruits. Really delicious. My kids eat it all day. We give them eggs and vegetables and things as well for breakfast. Homemade almond flour bread. That was a loaf of bread that I made, all through almond flour and eggs. A really nice recipe. We put peanut butter and banana on there. They can take it to school. They can eat it at home. So you have to find ways to be creative. Ground chicken nuggets. We take a good quality ground chicken, season it, dip it in egg wash, batter it with almond flour. I usually make about 5 pounds of this. We cook a few of them for the kids, for the adults too, and then we freeze all the rest. That way I have my own healthy chicken nuggets. We're in a pinch. We didn't plan our day. We're busy. Now my kids don't have to sacrifice their meals and eat something bad. Or the adults. It's adult friendly too. You have an easy life. Same thing with chicken strips. Again, good quality chicken, batter it, freeze it. Those Thomas Farms I mentioned, they have 100% grass-fed patties that are already pre-shaped, frozen, haddad. Also throw them in your freezer. That's 3 frozen meat options you always have available to you. So there's no excuse to eat anything that's unhealthy late at night. A few more examples. Those are the beef patties over there. Sweet potato mashed potatoes are a really nice creative side dish. I made chicken enchilada stew with Spanish wild rice, with some zucchini on the side. We made chicken shawarma. We took almond flour tortillas, put all the good stuff, made sure that we had some extra veggies on the side with it. I made an extremely packed pizza over there with almond flour crust, good quality meats, tons of vegetables, green beans with chicken. This is one of my favorite things, this veggie bone broth soup. Actually, if I don't eat eggs in the morning, I have this veggie bone broth soup. Bone broth is a superfood, really good for your stomach, really good for your immune system. I fill it with my 5 to 6 servings of vegetables, and then I have like a brown rice noodle as well, so that it's filling, it's delicious, I'm still getting good nutrients to start my day. I feel happy. And so it's very important to point out that there's one very important thing about the healing process when it comes to your body. Your immune system, your intestines, your gut, these things, they take time to heal. This is probably the biggest mistake we've all had when we've had a health issue. We diet, we change our diet for a few days or maybe even for a week. We don't feel any better sometimes. Sometimes we feel worse. We have food sensitivities. We're eating the wrong stuff, and we feel terrible. And we say, you know what? I'm going back to what I was eating. And again, we're just falling back into that same cycle, the same formula of the foods that kind of got us to this point. And so, when I was taking biological medications for Crohn's disease, I was required to wait a minimum of 3 months just to see if the medication was working. That's because some things in our body, they simply take time. Just like a broken bone won't heal in 3 weeks if you put it in a cast and you take good care of it, our bodies are the same thing. They just simply take more time to heal. So you have to expect the same when you're healing with food. So that's why this is not a diet that you're just going to try. This is a lifestyle. For most of us, we are way too young to be in this position. So we have to turn it around now, inshallah. And remember, the same lifestyle of eating we discussed today is not just for autoimmune disease. It's for diabetics, it's for heart disease, it's for high cholesterol, it's for high blood pressure, it's for cancer prevention, it's for obesity. It's even been proven to greatly impact clinical depression. It's also for living a long quality life, inshallah. Now, you guys made it to the home stretch. I quickly want to mention a list of other things that can cause or contribute to autoimmune disease that I touched on before. Here are a few samples of things that you can do that greatly make an impact on them. The first thing is pesticides in food. So how do we address this? You eliminate pesticides by eating organic fruits and vegetables as often as possible, as well as meats that are organic or grass-fed. There's a list, it's called the Clean 15, that you'll see here over on the side. These are actually produce that you don't need to eat organic because they have very little or no traces of any kind of pesticides in them, so you don't have to waste your money. You can buy these as non-organic. I also have on my nutrition page, you'll have this full list, so if you guys miss anything, I'll make sure you have access to it. A leaky gut. So a leaky gut is when the lining of your intestines and your stomach are damaged. Food then literally leaks through that damaged lining, causing you gas and bloating and infections, as well as ulcers. So eating foods that we mentioned throughout this lecture, those foods will eliminate, those will take care of a leaky gut. And they'll allow the growing of good bacteria to protect your stomach and your intestinal lining. A couple of foods that you can have that already have those good bacteria that are wonderful to add are fermented foods like pickles and sauerkraut and kimchi. And when I talk about pickles, I mean the fermented kind, which is salt water, basically pickles that are in salt water, and then over time they ferment. So you have to make them yourself. They're not the ones you buy at the store that are in vinegar. But the other two you can find at the store that are available. It's called A2 grass-fed probiotic yogurt. It's really wonderful. You'll see it at Costco. It's at many supermarkets. It's yogurt that comes from grass-fed cows, and it has all those good probiotics that haven't been tampered with or anything like that. That's one of my favorite ways to get probiotics. You can even get raw cheese. Especially if it's grass-fed, you are able to find it. It's kind of harder, but you can find it. Also has probiotics in it, so that's another nice alternative. So there are some things out there, even if you have access to raw milk or things like that, they do, but those are obviously kind of much more difficult to get your hands on. Apple cider vinegar is the one that I really love. You can put it in salads. You can make a quick pickling with it. Another great option to get good bacteria in your stomach. Eliminating everyday toxins. So there are a few easy ways you can do this that make a really big impact. Your drinking water. Filter your drinking water. There's a brand that's called Zero Water Filter. You can purchase it on Amazon. Very inexpensive. and it gives you clean water. You don't want to buy a more complicated reverse osmosis kind of system. Stop using Teflon nonstick pans and switch to a good quality ceramic nonstick pan or pots, stainless steel or cast iron. Stop using plastic cutting boards. Cut on a solid wood cutting board to avoid plastic particles in your food. Use a stainless steel spatula, or you can use a silicone spatula or a wooden spatula as opposed to a plastic one. Instead of baking directly on a sheet of foil, you can bake on unbleached parchment paper to avoid getting metals in your food. Replace your plastic Tupperware with glass Tupperware. So really, all these things I mentioned, you do them one time, and then you don't have to think about them anymore. They just resolve themselves. Air quality. I think the easiest thing you can do is open your windows as often as possible. Get good air circulation inside your home. Obviously, if you want to buy like an air filter or something, you can. But a very practical thing is just getting good air circulation. Mold exposure. Look around your windows and your walls in your home for any mold or mildew exposure. I spoke to someone who had Crohn's for 3 years, and she had mold exposure in her home. She wasn't aware of it. She moved to a different place, and she never had symptoms of Crohn's ever again. So these things, they really make an impact. Stress is a very big one. A lot can be done to combat stress. What you eat actually affects stress, as well as clinical depression, as I mentioned. Exercise is incredible stress for stressors. Walking outdoors has incredible stress-reducing benefits. Literally any physical movements or exercise class reduce stress. Using a sauna or a jacuzzi or a cold plunge or a cold shower or a steam room. It's crazy. Today you could literally purchase a portable sauna or a steam room for about $100 if that's something you truly desire and you wish you had in your own home. So, there are ways to do these. Having a good social life with family and friends, praying, finding purpose in life, seeking therapy is a great option. A lot can be done to actively combat stress. Sleep quality. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day to give your body consistent sleep. I think we all struggle with sleep. It's so essential to everything. Your food cravings, your stress, your crankiness, all these things are all related to sleep. It's really, really important. Dimming the lights at night, taking magnesium before bed, I mentioned, is a nice way to help you relax before bed. Limiting screen time before bed. Good exercise and what you eat also aids sleep. You'll notice food, stress, exercise, sleep, all play a role in improving one another. So we really have to focus on all of them in our everyday lives. We made it, guys. To conclude, it's important to realize that you control so much of your own health. There's no pill that lets you eat an endless amount of sugar if you're a diabetic. There's no pill that makes harmful food and harmful toxins unharmful. There's no pill that puts a high amount of nutrients in your body. A little multivitamin can only do so much. You are accountable for the things that are knowingly damaging your body with. If you're aware of these just now, it's a perfect time to turn around. The human body that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with is absolutely resilient if it's given the chance to heal and function properly. Imagine having the greatest mechanic in the world, yet he has to repair cars with cheap parts and duct tape. He simply can't do his job. So we have to give our body the tools in order for it to function properly. Now, if you care to make a change, my time and my advice is always available and always free. This was not a ploy for a marketing thing so that you're going to buy something. I'm always available. My knowledge is here for you, inshallah. Anytime you need me, you call me. Come speak with me afterward. You have a family member or something. I'm happy to help. This information, I'm going to post this entire video on my Crohn's Nutrition page. It's a page that I created a couple years ago. It has dozens of meal recipes on there. I have meals you can make in under 30 minutes, kids meals, more kids meals, healthy snacks and food, and much more information. Jazakallah khairan, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you guys for your time again. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Yes, Dr. Yasser.
I have a comment. You kept saying it's a disclaimer because you're not a doctor
Yes.
or a health professional. But eat is better than any other nutritionist I've attended. So we got
I had a question about traveling. So, what do you do when you travel, or if you don't travel? What would you advise people who travel and have to get out and things like that?
It's a really good question. It's very difficult when you're traveling. I try to limit my meals as much as I can when I'm traveling because it's very hard. One thing that I try really hard, if I can, is having access to a kitchen, or access with like a hotel room with a kitchen, or maybe an Airbnb. That way I can control some things. Obviously you're traveling, it's okay to eat out. You're not cooking multiple meals while you're busy and doing things. But those are the small things that I try to do. Limit my meals to just 2 meals. Usually you're traveling, you're not exercising like you are at home, or out and about, you're sitting around a lot, or on a plane. Limit what you eat. And then also your food options. Try to pick things that don't have seed oils. Sometimes you can ask for things to be cooked in butter, which is a better option. But again, there's no perfect answer to that. It's really, you have to work around it, and then once you get home, get back on track. But yeah, that's a really, really good question. I've thought about that many times and strategized that as well. Any other questions? Yes.
I have 2 questions. Some Palestinian people, they do seminar in bed.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, repeat that one. Oh, ghee, yes. Ghee is wonderful. Ghee is a very good fat alternative, yes.
Yeah, and the second question, you mentioned about seafood.
Seafood, yeah, so seafood is really wonderful. I mentioned wild caught, so that doesn't just apply to salmon. They have wild caught shrimp, there's wild caught, any of these fish. Yeah, so wild caught, they're fed with their, what they find in nature, as opposed to the farm where they just have cheap feed, and then they grow these fish and they're just not very nutritionally healthy. But yeah, any seafood is a really, really good option. Myself, I'm not really a big fan of seafood, or else there would have been much more pictures of seafood in my meals. But yeah, seafood is absolutely wonderful. Yeah, please, as many as you need.
What about gluten-free flour?
Gluten-free flour. So there are some flours out there, such as maybe almond flour, which is gluten-free. There are good options, but then they have ones that are also not good options. What they do is they process it in order to take the gluten out of it, and so now you're eating something that's even more ultra-processed. We have gluten-free breads that are on the shelves and things like that. There are things that are naturally gluten-free, like almond flour. There's one called cassava flour. There's many different ones. I'm not huge on flour in general, just because, like I mentioned before, once something turns into flour, it loses its nutrients, basically. So it's nice when you're having it with other vegetables and you're having it with nutrients that helps you eat. I showed you that pizza. I can't eat the pizza without the flour, so but I'm able to get all those good nutrients. So I try to avoid flours when I can, but I do use them. But yeah, there are good alternatives. Just make sure they haven't been a wheat that's been processed or things like that in order to try to make it healthier when really it's just more chemicals involved. Yes.
يعني الجزء ده كان عندي نفس أكيد لذلك يكون الشهر السيدي أو دورة السيدي ونفسه لأنه زادنا وبقنا لأنه هذا الشيء يعني الموضوع ما شاء الله عشان نتكلم مفيد للكل.
Okay, so her question was, Michelle, do you want to translate that again? I'm just kidding. Her question was having access to this information, basically. So this lecture has been recorded, so you're going to be welcome to share it. It's on the Yassine Foundation group. You can share this live lecture. I have this nutrition page. It has much more information than I even spoke about. That's a nice way. It's all in a short post. I try to get right to the point. I have a QR code for that, and so you can use that group. I'm also on the group. I'm the one that runs it. You can message me anytime. I'll do my best with my broken Arabic, inshallah, that I can help out in any way if I can. Yes?
You didn't mention anything about intermittent fasting.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious, did you try that at all? Did it help you, or do you have any advice around it?
I did. So you can do an entire lecture on intermittent fasting, and it's something that's extremely beneficial. I did do it. It's very good, especially for people with food sensitivities when they're in a flare-up. It's nice to just give your body a break. The only reason I focused on this is because a lot of us are nutrient deficient. Actually, 93% of people in the United States and other stats that are nutrient deficient in some sort of way. So once you've kind of mastered getting these nutrients, then dieting is even maximized because your body is already feeling good, it has what it needs, and now you're doing an even greater thing with it by letting your body, filter bad different cells that are growing and stuff like that. It's called autophagy. Yeah, many different things like that. So yes, fasting is highly recommended always. But remember, if you have a nutrient deficiency, I would work on both at the same time. At least, get that equal. And so that's a really good question. Should have been
So far, I love bread. I can't have enough bread.
Yes.
I really do. You can't live safe with no bread.
I know.
I don't know what is like widely available out there that just could be a replacement for your pita bread or baguette.
Yes.
Meaty bread, heavy meaty bread.
So I looked into this, absolutely. So I looked into this, and it reminds me, I was actually looking at the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. I wanted to know, does he eat bread? Was he eating bread? And so when I was reading about the Sunnah, he would eat it very limited. He'd never have it for 2 consecutive days. And the type of bread he was eating was barley bread, which is a very dense bread. It's like, meatloaf. It's basically like a very thick kind of bread. And so to answer your question, I do use a few breads. Almond flour tortillas, you buy them at Costco. I know they're not. You can't do that. Good point. That recipe that I had, the almond flour bread, I baked that myself. It's somewhat fluffy. It's obviously not white bread fluffy, but making your own is an option. They also have options that you can buy like at Sprouts. It's pretty expensive, but it's made with like tapioca starch. It's made with good things. You could use that as well, but really, we just weren't meant to eat a big portion of our diet in bread. It just there's no true nutrients in it that is like, hey, this was a staple. It's like I told you, it's been changed a lot. It was a staple food.
The question is, there's nothing commercial that you're aware of that's Costco's way.
No. Some specialty things at Sprouts, we have them in our fridge, but they're okay. But yeah, really, and this was big for me too. I just had to transition off of bread basically, except for a little corn tortilla here or almond flour. But no, nothing is as good as dipping bread in oil or butter. Is no replacement.
What about making your own naturally leavened sourdough bread at home? I do that.
Yeah.
It's much easier to digest, and I think the gluten is much lower. But
Yes.
I don't know what you think about that.
My wife literally has it in our windowsill. You can do that, and you can also use, different wheats that have less gluten in them. There's a wheat called einkorn wheat. Yeah, einkorn wheat, which is like a natural, original grain. So if you're really into baking, you can use that type of wheat. Now it still has gluten. I still don't think it's a perfect option, but it's much healthier. It's what the plant originally was, the wheat plant that was from hundreds of years ago, not the one that's been modified. So again, I bought them before. The container is this big, it's very expensive, which is why I didn't really mention it. It's just not practical. It's very pricey. But really, there's so many food options out there. There's all these vegetables and a few healthy grains and meats and all these things that we have options of. We just have to shift our diets into focusing more on that. But yeah, you can make your own bread. Is it better than the store? 1,000%. Is it the perfect option or is it super nutritious? I don't think so, but I think it's, if you're having it limited, I think go ahead. It's okay. Auntie James.
Yeah. Where do you get those alternative rices?
So I get them from either from Whole Foods or from Sprouts. I tried black rice a long time ago. Actually, it was purple rice. I really liked it. I bought like an 85 pound tub on Amazon, which was very inexpensive, and so that way I have like a legitimate, nice, healthy carb, not super expensive. But then again, try it first before you buy an 85 pound container. Are there any other questions?
Any thoughts on coffee or tea or caffeine in general?
Yes. If you like drinking coffee because it tastes okay and you enjoy it, you can go ahead. If you need to drink coffee because you get a headache if you don't drink it, you have to stop it. That's not. You should only rely upon Allah and the food that He blessed us with. We shouldn't be super reliant on coffee. Again, if you have something like a nut milk or something, you can add that to your coffee. It's completely fine. Really, the coffee itself is not an issue. It's just being addicted to the caffeine in it. Same thing with tea. You can have many different kinds of teas. I didn't really touch on many beverages. We make our own almond flour milk. Almond milk, not almond flour milk. Yeah. You can do that. Again, these things require lots of effort, which is why I didn't bring them up, because I don't expect you guys to, start farming in your own home. But yeah, there are a couple of good drink options. Coffee is fine every once in a while, as long as you're not hooked with it. Yeah, the acidity in the coffee is also beneficial as well. Okay, are there any other questions? Yes.
Do you mind sharing what kind of pain you have to endure?
What kind of pain I had to endure? Oh my gosh. Do we have another hour? Just kidding. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I took a normal medication for it. I did really well for 6 months. Then no medication started working. I went through a year of no medication working. My entire large intestine was completely ruined. I lost 6 feet of intestine. And then so I only had my small intestine after that. And then I developed ulcers all throughout my small intestine. And so that's when I kind of came to realize that, hey, you have a big and a small, and I can't lose my small. And so that's when I really was desperate. But yeah, I had many surgeries to remove sections, and it's a little bit complicated. They created a J pouch, and it didn't work out for me, and just a lot of stuff there. But yeah, lots of infections. Every time I'd go through a surgery, an infection would come. Require a few months of me having drains in my bodies, 2 drains at a time for over a year. So yeah, there was a lot of discomfort, but I'm really happy to have gone through that. Come to that. There's a big need for this. I know I'm not the only one. I knew I wasn't, and so I asked Allah if I could make a way out for this. I promise I'm going to share it. There's not going to be a 3 easy payments of $19.95 thing. This is for everybody. This is general information. The best part of this is that you know it's real. I mean, we're telling you to buy real foods, right? There's no products or this or drink this gel 3 times a day. Those things don't work when you're eating 113 chemicals anyway, so don't even waste your time. But yeah, so alhamdulillah, I'm here. I do jiu-jitsu with a few people here. I got my quality of life back. My energy has been better than ever. I get to be with my kids and play with them, so alhamdulillah. There's always hope. You have to keep searching for it. Unfortunately, the answers, they just didn't come. I spoke to some of the top doctors. I don't want to call out, but some of the biggest hospitals in the United States I traveled to, I couldn't get this information. It's apparently widespread in certain communities, and that's why I wanted to share with you guys in China. Yeah, of course. Any other questions? Thank you guys. Yes, one more, don't stop yet. Sorry, no one, go ahead. Yeah, take it in. Okay. Sleep apnea, yeah. Yes. So I'm not a doctor, but I can even tell you, you should use your sleep apnea machine. You can have complications during sleep, so that's extremely important. But yes, your diet, especially if you're overweight, it changes your insides, meaning you have more room to breathe. There's many people that have been on sleep apnea machines that actually got off of them once they've lost a certain amount of weight or have felt better. So there are possibilities. Obviously, every situation is different. Like I told you, I'm not a doctor, but yes, I would, if you have any health issue, really addressing the food aspect is something that needs to be done right away. And then after that, you can say, hey, what do I do from here? What do I do next? But yeah, that's a really good question. Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly. They no longer have, they do have a big machine, but there are other options that make it at least a little more comfortable and less irritating when you're trying to sleep. Oh, so I have a special gift for everybody that's here and survived this 12-hour lecture. Thank you guys. I have a card. It has that food pyramid that you saw earlier, which is really nice. Keep that at your house. It's a nice way to refer of kind of what to do and what you should build your diet around. It has the quote from the Quran on there as a nice reminder to care about your health. It has another quote on the back, eat the food that loves you back, which is a really powerful quote. I want you guys to keep the QR code for my nutrition groups on the back too. So you're saying, hey, I want some recipes, I want something. You scan that, you'll have a nice big list of recipes. We have snacks as well. I also didn't mention, I have a QR code for Brother Fahim that I mentioned. He has these delicious meats that are pasture raised. We have a WhatsApp group together with him, and we order every once or twice a year. He's actually going to open an online store in April, inshallah, in California. So you can have really good access to it. You can scan that QR as well. Add yourself to the group and we'll get more information, inshallah. But yeah, that's all I have to offer for now, inshallah. But yes, again, I'm always available. You see me at the Friday prayers. Please, I'm happy to give you my time, inshallah. Thank you.